Yesterday's rally was an outward and visible sign of the complete disdain the public have for this government. Bearing in mind it is on the back of 14 years of utter neglect from the Tories, and Keir Starmer's now picking up that. Because we've had enough of being treated as non-entities and not getting listened to, and especially this business of labelling us all far right, because far right is now anybody who doesn't agree with the government. Have you noticed that? That your right to disagree is being slowly eroded. I mean, we've now got a Home Secretary who stood and made a speech accusing President Trump of being close to the Ku Klux Klan and Nazis and fascists. These labels are just handed about by the left to anybody who disagrees with them. And what does that do? Well, it lessens the insult, it makes it meaningless, and then it makes you think, well, change my mind, as Charlie Kirk would say. Change my mind, show me what you're offering me that's so good that I'm missing. Because I can't see what you're offering me. I'm seeing higher taxes. And with the Labour government, they've only got in because they lied to everyone. They caused it up to the pensioners but never mentioned the winter fuel allowance till after they got in. They caused it up to the students and then changed the legislation for them. They caused it up to big business, and some of them even fell for it and backed them and promoted them. And now they've been lumbered with exorbitant PAYE increases that have left some businesses with £5 and £6 million a year extra to pay. Small businesses were buggered anyway under Labour. But the most disappointing thing of all is to see a Labour MP take a link from a news channel, put it on her page about the demonstration yesterday, the rally, and basically label every single person that was there as far right, an anti-immigration rally. That's what she called it. The title of the rally was Unite the Kingdom, not anti-immigration. Many topics were discussed, including Christianity, which seems to be right at the back seat at the moment. And I think for people in responsible positions like MPs, councillors, government itself, you shouldn't be labelling anybody in this country en masse as far right or Nazis or fascists, because you wouldn't know one if they come and slapped you in the face, because this country is a democracy, yet tentatively. And unfortunately, every time you do that, you show yourself up for what you are: careless, thoughtless, and not thinking about this country at all. When an MP calls everyone far right, how can they know that? Because that rally yesterday, there must have been at least, conservatively speaking, 700,000 to 1 million people there. The media said it was 100 to 150. No, it was more than that. The GB News reporter, the Irishman who was actually on the ground, said he'd been to Old Trafford, which has a capacity of about 74,000, and he'd witnessed at least 7 Old Traffords walk past him. So what does that tell you? Unfortunately, this far-right slur doesn't do them any justice, because what these MPs especially and councillors need to remember, you may well have won the vote, but once you're in office, you're supposed to represent everybody in that constituency, even those who voted for someone else. You're not supposed to label them far right. And this particular MP, I won't mention her name because I don't want to drag any more negative attention to her page, but this particular MP has had an awful lot of pushback from people in her constituency who have said, well, hang on a minute, I went to the march. Well, I believe in what they're talking about, and she's there to represent them too, whether she likes it or not. And we are sick of being labelled as far right. The only rational commentator was Trevor Phillips on Sky TV. And what you've got to take from this is Sky TV. He, again, was frugal with the estimated numbers, 150,000. But he said what we've got to ask ourselves is, why have so many people turned out? Bearing in mind he thinks it's 150,000. It's way more than that. The estimates of 3 million, I think, are over the top. I would think between 700 to 1 million people turned out. Now, out of 700 to 1 million people being on the streets all at the same time, there were 24 arrests. and sadly some police injured. But a lot of that was down to ineffective policing, because they'd shipped in officers from different police forces who don't understand or know London. There were interviews with several people who ended up going down the wrong road and were given the wrong advice. Then some got kettled in an offshoot, which was only probably 10 metres from a Palestinian protest. It was just unfortunate, bad policing, but I don't think it was intentional. But you can't turn around, and David Lammy, the ticker tape message came across on TV this morning. David Lammy has said that protesters from that day will feel the full force of the law. The full force of the law. What does that mean? That sounds like someone who's already pronounced their guilt to me. Full force of the law. Why? When clearly there were reasons for things getting heated because the policing missed a beat. And then you've got these politicians using these labels. I mean, likening Donald Trump to being close to the Ku Klux Klan. David Lammy did that. And likening him to being a fascist. The fascists are the ones shutting you up. The fascists are always the ones that don't want you to speak, whatever side of politics they're from. And back in Germany, in the 1940s, the reason that they were called Nazis was the National Socialist Party, not right-wing socialist, not conservatism. And these labels are still being churned out, despite the fact that an American man, a young father and husband, who decided to take his campaign to the campuses of the colleges of America and sit with a board saying, change my mind, his crime, he wanted to debate ideologies and politics, and for that, a maniac shot him. And even after that fact, our own politicians in the UK are still using these unacceptable slurs. Fair enough if you want to call it each other, but you're a politician in high office. You should not be using these tactics. It's unforgivable to label people up with one sweeping statement. Anybody with half an ounce of common sense knows that out of 1 million people, there'll be people from all backgrounds, all jobs, all ethnicities, all religions, there for one reason. They've had enough of the government. 14 years of Tory betrayal, topped with utter disdain, and idiotic ideas like the race to zero. We're going to shut our own steel manufacturing down completely. We're still going to need steel. So that will in fact increase the carbon footprint, because not only will we have to buy it abroad, it will have to be transported back to us from places like China, which is madness in itself. So as they come out with these bonkers ideas that cost us more money, and we end up with less money in our pockets, we get more and more dissatisfied. And I am absolutely appalled at David Lammy, who says, without knowing the circumstances, that these people will feel the full force of the law. Does that sound like tyranny to you? Does that sound like you're in a democracy? Does that sound like someone with a power base is going to teach you a lesson for stepping out of line? It doesn't sound good, does it?